John Lennon in the eyes of Keith Richards. The Rolling Stones and the Beatles were the two main British rock and roll acts that first gained popularity in the early 1960s, and both contributed significantly to the growth of the genre. For many years, there was a fierce rivalry between the bands since their fan bases had different views, styles, and musical tastes. A large portion of the Beatles and Rolling Stones rivalry was created by the media to draw attention and boost newspaper sales. Although there was considerable anticipation that the two bands would ultimately compete, the Beatles recommended the Rolling Stones to Decca Records. Even though the Beatles were more well-known and had more UK #1 songs, the Rolling Stones had their own share of hits and scandals. A regular discussion point between the two bands was the Rolling Stones guitarist Keith Richards, who over the years expressed his opinions about the Beatles, particularly the late guitarist and singer John Lennon. The Beatles helped the Stones secure their first hit and record deal, and the members of both British bands got along well. Early attempts by the press and fans to create a competition between the bands were unsuccessful. Keith Richards, who is likewise well known for being a straight shooter and always giving his honest assessment of other bands, has previously ranked the Beatles as one of the best bands of all time. Living Legends was a YouTube project that Richards and Mick Jagger took part in 2008, answering fan questions. The guitarist named the Fab Four among the four bands he considered the greatest of all time. The Beatles, he remarked. Well, obviously, I kind of threw them in. John Lennon, a prominent member of the Liverpool band, was good friends with Richards. Richard discussed the late Beatle in an interview conducted in 2004 for Ask Keith, a special series of questions and answers he posted on his website. He disclosed, I used to spend a lot of time hanging out with John. He was far too funny. He was truly a lovely soul, and he most definitely didn't deserve to be slain. As we age, I suppose we will have more of this feeling that something like Graham Parsons, George, and John are saying, what the hell am I doing here? The good, die young. John used to come see me, I believe, just to spend a night being sort of like one of the Stones and not one of the Beatles. Like to get really silly. John, you only need to sleep in front of the toilet and everything will be okay. That's kind of how it was, We were simply amazing friends, and he is a free spirit. 1 year earlier, he had also talked about the Beatles on his website, remembering how their relationship had started out. He claimed that the two bands always got along well and would talk to each other before putting out new music to avoid conflicts between releases. John was one of my close friends in particular, Keith remarked. Tales too wonderful to be told. George was a charming man, and we had Paul, who was an amazing songwriter, and Ringo, what a person, what a solid. They arrived to see us play. Our gig was playing in a tavern at the Station Hotel in Richmond. Really, it was the only one we had. It was a terrific time for everybody. I turn around and see these four guys standing there wearing overcoats made of black leather. Not long after Love Me Do, this occurred. He also said, this was early on, this is the early 1960s. We've been great friends ever then. It was mandatory to have a new single every 2 months back then, so when George's new song was ready, we always made sure not to cross paths.